Hello and welcome to Writings from the Hills. My name is Lori. This week I am spotlighting a book. This is a children's book written by Jesse Staurt Foundation. Jesse Staurt, excuse me. The Jesse Staurt Foundation gave us permission to read this book for our program. It is Andy Finds a Way. It is a chapter book. It's 98 pages long, so it's not very long. This was written by Jesse Staurt and illustrated by Robert Henenberger. And it's a story about Andy Scott. He's a little boy. He was always lived on a farm and always wanted a pet of his own. When their family cow Gypsy gives birth to a calf, Andy calls him Sadi, and he falls in love with the little calf. And his father tells him he knows, and Andy knows, that he's going to have to sell the calf to provide food and money for the family. But Andy isn't willing to give up his friend, and he thinks of a plan that will be able to allow him to keep his animal and his new friend, as well as help his family. And there are some beautiful illustrations, as you can see in this book. And I'm going to start with Andy Finds a Playmate. "Come, Andy," his father said. "We must find Gypsy. This is just about the last place in the pasture we have to look. If she's not hiding here, I don't know where she is." Andy Scott followed his father down the cow path under the sassafras and pawpaw bushes. Little saw briar vines raked his bare feet and legs until he could hardly keep up. His father walked very fast in front of him over the path old Gypsy had made. He'd take a few steps, stop, look to his right, and then to his left, under the pawpaw and sassafras, to see if Gypsy were hiding there. "When the cow calves, she hunts the best places to hide in the pasture," Andy's father said. He stopped in front of Andy where the path went through a thicket of brush and briars. Here wild honeysuckle twined up the trees, and many branches bent over at the weight of the vines. "Here is an out-of-the-way place for her to hide, but you never can tell about a cow." Suddenly Andy stopped. "Look, Pa! Look behind you on the other side of the path!" he shouted. "Gypsy and a pretty little calf! Look, Pa!" "Now don't get too excited, Andy," his father said calmly. "You've seen calves before." "But not as pretty as this one," Andy said, and he watched the calf stand up behind its mother on awkwardly spindly legs. The calf wobbled first one way and then another, and almost looked like it was as if it was going to fall. "I told you we'd find her in the best place to hide in the pasture," his father said. He began breaking a path among the sumac, pawpaw, sassafras, and sawbriars that tied the bushes in clusters. "This whole pasture is a good place to hide. Not a clearing spot for grass on the 40 acres. Nothing but brush, briars, and trees. Be careful where you put your feet, Andy. Don't step on a briar." "I'm more scared of stepping on a snake, Pa," Andy replied. And he always dreamed to come to this part of the pasture when he hunted Gypsy. He was afraid the snakes might be hidden in the wild honeysuckle. Andy set his bare feet down carefully on selected spots of ground to miss the briars as he followed his father for the path over where old Gypsy was washing her calf. As she washed his face with her long tongue, she moved gently. She was talking to the calf, but it wasn't talking to her. It was standing with big, bright eyes wide apart and wondering at the world it was born into. Andy felt a great happiness just to watch the two. Well, if you would like to read more about Andy and his little pet calf, Sadi, you can borrow this book by going to any of our locations and requesting a copy, or going to our website at www.briggslibrary.com. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next time.